Hi, I am Michael Santos with Prison Professors, and I want to thank you for coming back for part two of our interview with Craig Rothfeld. He is the founder of Inside Outside, and he's got an inspiring story of somebody who went to prison but used his time in prison to prepare for success. If you like these kinds of programs, please subscribe to the Prison Professors program. We produce new content every day to teach and inspire. And if you like CBD, please support our sponsors at cbdtv.com. Now, here's part two with Craig Rothfeld, where we speak about our objectives here at Prison Professors and how we strive to penetrate prisons across the nation to teach and inspire guys who are serving time. And we hope that's valuable to you. Thank you. I am Michael Santos with Prison Professors, and we're doing part two of this episode with Craig Rothfeld, the co-founder of Inside Outside. He's a criminal justice advisor and advocate for people who are experiencing the criminal justice system in the state of New York. If you've got a challenge with the state of New York prison system, I highly encourage you to contact him. In the show notes below, I will have the link to his phone number and his email address so that you can reach him directly. We spoke all about his business in episode one. In part two, we're going to talk about prison professors and white collar advice and how this venture got started. And I'm going to be just really return the favor to him and to respond to any questions, but also hopefully give some value to those of you who are watching the Prison Professors program from inside of a jail or a prison. If you're watching it outside, please subscribe to the program. We produce content every day to try and show people how to get best outcomes if they're going into the system. So fair enough, Craig? That's how we, fair enough representation?
I like it. We'll turn the tables. And I think the thing that I would say to people is that having something to do inside, a routine, particularly the ability to learn, to read, it's a unique time in your life. It's not something that any of us ever asked for. But it's an adult time out, and to not use this time to your fullest advantage, in my mind personally is a waste of time. So what I'm curious about, I understand the education components in the state, but I have familiarity with Hudson Link here in New York, which you may or may not have heard of. It's run by Sean Pica, which is an education program, and there is also a couple of colleges that have linked up where people can get like 2-year associate's degrees. And I was talking with Justin about it earlier. There was a company out there called Defy Ventures, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And so I'm loosely familiar with some of the kind of education movements inside the facilities. But, I was going to ask you to comment on, what is the content that you're delivering? And from what I do know, it's not being delivered inside the New York State Department of Corrections, which means it's something you and I should be working on, trying to accomplish.
Okay, great question. Let me give you, first of all, I'm going to break this up into a series of a few minute episodes because there's a lot to cover there. I think I should probably start by just giving you, the backstory is that I made a lot of bad decisions as a young man. I was 20 years old, sold cocaine. And by the time I was 23 years old, I was locked up and facing a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. At the earliest stages of the journey, all I really wanted was to get out of prison. And it took a little while for me to, during that era between my conviction and my sentencing, before I had this epiphany that I had to really change my mindset. And that mindset was, instead of thinking about the problems that I created, I got to be thinking about how can I reconcile with society. And I was inspired by many leaders, starting with Socrates and then Mandela and Malcolm X and Viktor Frankl and Levi Strauss and so many other people who faced enormous struggles. They kind of gave me a mindset of what is it going to take to climb through a difficult circumstance. And that empowered me through 9,500 days of prisons of every security level, where I got an undergrad from Mercer University, a master's from Hofstra in New York, and went on to begin building, publishing books while I was in prison, and then creating content, digital content that would, I hoped, teach and inspire other people who are in prison. During the latter stages of my journey, I met Justin Paperny, my partner, and he is a finance guy, and we started speaking about what we could do to help more people going into the system. And that's what launched White Collar Advice. He got out a little bit before me and built a one-on-one consulting firm where he has a few sentence mitigation experts that work. And my role is really just creating the learning platform and the tools. I do very little one-on-one consulting. I operate much more at scale. And that means I create all kinds of courses that I do sell to prisons and jails across America. And in New York, we are actually in the New York City Department of Corrections. So they have our podcast, the Prison Professors program there. But I'm in, every state prison in California, several federal prisons, Mecklenburg County Jail in North Carolina, and growing it all the time. But the reason that works, Craig, is because I have the time to do it. I devote time to creating this digital content that becomes an asset, a digital asset. So I have a digital library of content, including video, audio, but also coursework. And that coursework is what we deliver to jails and prisons under the theory that if you're in custody, you're going to be really inclined to learn from somebody who's been there before you and come back successfully. So all of my courses our courses are created under that umbrella of either Prison Professors branding, Earning Freedom branding, and then we have a catalog of courses that we reach out and market, but to do so at scale. So the idea is that as prisons become, particularly in this era of the coronavirus, where they're not bringing volunteers to teach into prison, we can bring our programs in there in a digital capacity. So we go on iPad-like devices that are inside of jails and prisons. Or if they don't make that available, we can put it on a flash drive and they can show it over the television right there. And then we have a series of books that are either soft cover or PDF that we can provide. And that's what we deliver. But all of our courses are really talking about how to change the mindset so that you're not living with this victim mentality of what's happened to you, but rather, how do I live in the world as it exists? How do I make a life of meaning and relevance and dignity while I'm in here so I can start sowing seeds for a better outcome? So that's kind of the short version of everything that we do, but I produce content every day for the YouTube channel at Prison Professors. Every week, I've got more than 500 or 600 podcasts that I have that are on iTunes and other podcasting platforms, and dozens of books that are helping people who are living in struggle understand what are the strategies that we use. In fact, the episodes that we are doing right now will become a digital assets in the Prison Professors library. This episode will be available inside of jails and prisons, with hopes that people inside can watch this and say, wow, I want to be like Craig. I want to get out of here and apply my expertise into helping other people make better decisions. So that in a nutshell is what we do. But my knowing that you want to do this, my recommendation would be that we collaborate. You focus on what you are doing, marketing and sales, and I can provide, or Prison Professors can provide content that you could sell. And you could share in the revenues of that. That way you don't have to invest the time, the energy, and the resources to produce all of this content, which is laborious. And just buying the equipment and then spending the time to learn the equipment and then create it is a huge investment. But if we created relationships with other people, I really believe that this can grow in a much bigger way.
I agree. And there's 3 or 4 things I was going to mention. I mean, one's about a book. I'm going to say them out loud in case I forget. One's about a book. One is about the ability to kind of just share with people how my mind works. I think how both of our mind works as I'm listening to this. And given what Prison Professors about, and, another one is just about what it's like for people on the inside. For the people on the inside, they know already. For the people on their way in, they'll get something out of this. And you mentioned Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. I read 52 or 53 books when I was in the 18 months. And people always ask me, what's the number one book I should read? And for me, it's always Man's Search for Meaning. I read that at Rikers, and it completely changed my mindset for everything that I had in front of me. And it doesn't matter whether you're Jewish or not. I mean, it's just a book that I think, whether you're in prison or not, I think everybody should read the book. It's a fantastic, incredible book that puts a lot of things in perspective. Certainly will put the COVID pandemic in perspective. You know, as I'm listening to you, you know, what I'm thinking to myself is, and the message would be, yes, you know, I think that one of the keys to success is focus. And obviously there are lots of businesses out there and big companies that, you know, cast a wide net, many different product lines, so on and so forth. But it's about doing what you do best. And if somebody has already built something or has done something that is somewhat best in class, for me, it's better to partner with them than try to recreate it. And, you know, you have something that I believe can be used and sold into the New York State Department of Corrections. This New York State Department of Corrections is way behind the Federal Bureau of Prisons. They just started rolling out within the last year or so tablets, the JPay tablets. And I know there are education programs in there, but they're not significant. They're not large. They're limited to just certain institutions. And, you know, tying that in with my last, you know, thought with you is that people inside need something to do, whether it's reading or working out. There's so much time to fill up all the time. And putting content, educational content for people inside is another way for people to cope and pass time and feel good about themselves and what they're doing.
So one of the projects all of our projects really are centered on self-directed learning. Understanding that the institution isn't always going to have the interactivity with colleges and teachers and so on. So I strive to teach, really, it starts with a 10-part course, and that 10-part course is really, we call a values-based, goal-oriented strategy that we call our Straight A Guide. And it works like this. You know, the first step is a person that's going in there has to start by defining success. What is the best possible outcome? Not necessarily the outcome that I want. What's the best possible outcome? I can't change the past, but I can start sowing seeds for a better life. And so if I begin from that premise, best possible outcome, I can start engineering a pathway. And that leads me to module 2, which is on the very clearly defined specific goals that I have to achieve in order to become the best in the world at what I say I want to become. So a module on goals, then, they're very specific. Then we get into, those are the prerequisites to the Straight A Guide. Then you get into the next module, which is attitude. You got to have the right attitude. And I define the right attitude is it's 100% commitment to success. Not as I defined it, but as you defined it in module 1. Okay, because not everybody wants the same thing. You may want to become a great piano player, and so your goals are going to be different from somebody who wants to become a great basketball player, right? So you define success, demonstrate that you've got the right attitude by making 100% commitment to that. Next module is going to be an aspiration. You had an aspiration when you started your sentence, as you could learn if you click the link below and watch the first episode with Craig, of wanting to provide value to other people going into the New York State prison system. He saw himself doing exactly what he is doing right now. And so he put the effort in so that he could get there, where he's got people paying him $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 to get his expertise. That started an aspiration which gave him the motivation to keep doing the work when days were turning into weeks, weeks were turning into months, months were turning into years. Go to module 5, that's what this is about, is taking action. You've got to take the action steps, otherwise you're just going to be somebody who talks about success rather than somebody who does it. So that's module 5. Module 6 is about accountability. You got to define the accountability metrics of what am I going to achieve today? How am I going to achieve them? What's the roadmap? How do I hold myself accountable? I'm not doing this for a lower bunk pass or an extra bowl of Wheatings. I'm doing this because it is the pathway to success as I've defined it. So then you go to module 7, which is awareness. If you're on this path, the world becomes aware of you and you become aware of opportunities that you can seize. As we spoke about in the previous episode, that guy reached out to you because you had put those seeds out there in the universe and they grew and people knew that you were the best in the world at what you did. And before you know it, high net worth people are calling you and said, I need to put you on retainer. That leads to number 8. Module 8 is really about having the CEO mindset. And you know all about that as being a guy who built a company that did tens of millions in revenues. What is the CEO mindset? Well, in our course, we say the first thing you have to do is define success. Once you've done that, you've got to create a strategy that you document, that becomes policy driven and it's repeatable. Define your strategy and document it. Then 2, develop the tools, tactics, and resources that will help you execute on that strategy. And then 3, you've got to hold yourself accountable with really clear metrics and measuring progress every day. Then that takes us to module 9, which is about recognizing you've got to celebrate every achievement, no matter how small, as you do with your clients when you get them ready, of removing the opacity of what's coming and making it clear that this is a step that you're going to do in the first 10 days, the first 20 days, boom, boom, boom. That's how you're providing value. You celebrate those achievements as the person starts to remove the fear and replacing it with knowledge and confidence of what's to come. And then finally, module 10 in our program is all about giving back. So showing your appreciation by helping other people reach their highest potential. And that's really the foundation of our course. And then we supplement it by feeding more content every day by interviewing inspiring guys like you, Craig, who've actually done it. And then people start to say, well, I can do it as well. This is not any secret. This is the pathway to success that I have learned from great leaders, whether they are people that lived centuries ago like Socrates, or people that are living today like Bill Gates, or Michael Jordan. This is the pathway to success as I experienced it. And I believe that anybody can execute on this model if they understand it. But we create a series of digital products to help people learn that, and then they can take that framework of that course and apply it to more micro level courses, like how do I develop a resume? How do I build stronger communication skills? How do I stay more physically fit? How do I build a relationship with a loved one while I'm in prison? How do I, get ready for the outside? How do I launch a business when I come home? I mean, there's an infinite number of topics that I create courses for, but that's what I do. I'm hoping that guys like you can help sell them.
That's fantastic. And, 3 things that I would mention or add or whatever it is, the thing about achievements, I got involved in the Weinstein case because I was very proud of the achievement of getting someone home on parole, right? So, I'm helping people go in. I basically take people end to end, right? They go in until they're out and they're off parole. And I was so proud of the achievement that I said to myself, I want to share this, but I need to share this in a way that gives content, that gives value. And that's what I did. And it's important for people to understand that there's no shame in sharing your achievements. It's just doing it in the proper manner. The second thing I was going to say to you, another A that I love is affirmations, right? It's affirming things for yourself. I happen to be a huge Tony Robbins fan and all his mentors before that, Brian Tracy. And, I always say this to people. I always suggest it. And so if how many people, and this is a great exercise for your entire audience that's listening inside, how many people have ever stood in front of a mirror and said, I like myself, right? I've done it. First time I did it, I laughed. But when you forgive yourself, whether it's I forgive myself, I forgive myself, I forgive myself, or I like myself, affirmations, particularly verbal and mental, change their mindset. I have no hesitation to share with you that the 2 months leading up to my parole board hearing, every single day, multiple times a day, whenever I went to the bathroom and there was a mirror in front of me, I looked and said, I'm going to make my parole board. I'm going to make my parole board. I'm going to make my parole board. Creating a self-fulfilling prophecy in my head. And the last thing I wanted to share from my takeaways is visualization. I think it is so important when people are doing your coursework, listening to all 10 of those things, you're talking about what does success look like, is visualizing success in your own way. I often tell people, if not always, that I didn't know what my success was going to look like when I got out, but I visualized it in ways that I could. I visualized it, whether it was being, a leader of another company that got taken over and what my reaction would be and what my kids' reaction would be, whether it be giving public speeches again or being honored again. Though that visualization is so important to your self-worth and is so important to get you out of the physical place that you're actually in, which is prison.
Well, I know that you've got a call to make in 7 minutes, so I'm going to close this episode out, but we would love to have you as a part of the Prison Professors program, as an alumni, an adjunct professor with us, and hopefully to build an ongoing relationship with you. I will send you, in fact, if you go to prisonprofessors.com on your website, and you go up to the section that says reentry, I think it says reentry, or it says institutions or agencies or something, click it, and you will be able to access our cloud-based system and see our 10-part course on how to prepare for success from jail or prison. That's the program that we sell to institutions. You could register. It's free. There's no credit card or anything like that. As you take it for a test drive, watch some of the videos, see how it can help you, and then we'll create some type of a system for you to be an authorized rep for that. I'd love to do that with you.
I would love to do it with you, and I'm going to do it, and I would love to work with you to have you start to infiltrate the New York State Department of Corrections, because there's no question that the people inside there would get tremendous value out of being able to.
Well, we can provide it in all types of programs, but the real sweet spot would be to make you a rep of that and have you do it as a prison professor, and that way you get a fee from every sale. So look, I really want to thank you for spending your time with our audience, and want to encourage anybody that's interested in reaching out to Craig. The contact information is below in the description. Hope that you'll support his program. Hope that you will subscribe if you haven't yet to the Prison Professors YouTube channel or podcast, and we'll just keep doing what we do, which is trying to teach and inspire more people who are going through struggle.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, boss.
All right, we'll talk soon.
Okay.